Hi guys, how are you? My name is Pablo Contriciani. I am a visual artist and an art instructor living and working here in Miami. I am going to have um, a conversation with an artist colleague, Vickie Pierre. We are going to talk about her creative artist process. Vickie is a multimedia contemporary artist. She's having a solo show currently at Fred Snitzer Gallery, one of the most important galleries in Miami. And we are going to talk about how she produces her work, why, what's the meaning behind it, what inspired her. The goal with this conversation is for you to understand better Vickie's work. I'm going to repeat this series of conversations every Tuesday at 6 p.m. with a different artist guest to have a bigger perspective about this topic, the creative artist process. I'm going to call Vickie. Please be patient a few moments until I reach her. Hi, Vickie.
Hi.
Okay, welcome. Let's correct. You see, this is how you see yourself now is how everybody sees, and then maybe
Sure.
now I see your whole head.
Oh, can you see me?
Yes,
Okay.
you look very beautiful.
You are so charming.
Okay, we are going to start just because in the audience there are people that they don't know about you, and then let's start.
Sure.
How when did you come to Miami? Where are you from? When did you come to Miami, and how you get into the arts? Three questions in one.
Oh my God.
Where are you from?
Um, I'm from New York
Mhm.
originally. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and I lived there most of my life until I was about 29,
Mhm.
and that's when I came to Miami.
Vickie, when did you decided to be an artist? Were you in New York once you arrived to Miami?
I decided to be an artist very early on.
Hmm.
Well, maybe I shouldn't say it that way. Originally, I thought that I would be, I used to say I'm going to be a teacher when I was a kid. And and when I think back on that now, I can't understand where that came from really. Um, but so when I was in high school, I thought that maybe I would be a fashion designer. I used to draw a lot of women in clothes and different outfits that I would make up, on the paper, on the page. And at one point, I had one of those kind of template plate kind of. It's not a game, but it's like this toy for women, I guess, or kids, maybe boys too. And you could make different outfits by kind of like embossing, and it was something that you could buy, maybe made by Hasbro or some toy company back in the 70s, 80s. And so you can take different plates of the outfits and crisscross them, interchange them, and then you can make an outfit. And so I used to play a lot with that when I was growing up. And so there was a point in my life where I thought, oh, I could make fashion. I could do that. And that was when I was in high school primarily.
Mhm.
Um, in between high school and college, there was a period of time that I didn't go to school. I was kind of not clear. Um, and it was a little, I don't want to say dicey, but I was unclear. I wasn't really sure about what I would be doing. But I thought fashion would be the thing to do. And so I actually went to the Fashion Institute of Technology. I applied and I got in with my drawings, and I went for a semester. So I was probably like 18 at this point. Um, and so I went for a semester. And that January, I thought to myself, this isn't going to work. um,
What
it just
happened?
was, it was just very difficult, you know, and I
Okay.
couldn't make heads or tails of some of the classes and pattern making and, you know, technical stuff. It was just, I just kind of thought, oh, I was just going to draw and then someone was going to make it. You know, I was very juvenile in my thinking. And God, I mean, I don't even remember now how I got into the school, you know, with that kind of mentality. But I was really just, I was completely demystified. And, you know, I realized that it wasn't for me. And also something that was really, uh, really stuck to me, really poignant, was there would be times that I would kind of ask for help from the students that I was in classes with, and people were just not helpful. Um, you know, people had locks on their portfolios. And so,
Oh,
you know, it was just kind of a secretive, you know, there was no collaboration or really talking. And so at that point, it was January, and I was like, I'm not going back to FIT, which is what it's the anagram. Is that right? And so I didn't do anything for a while, and I kind of worked, and I worked in a fashion boutique, and I worked in a toy store, and I had all these really cool jobs, like little boutique shops in Manhattan, in New York. And then I met some kids or young people who I had been friends with a very, very long time ago. I hadn't seen them in quite a few years. And one of them was talking about going to this art school, SVA. And we all just started hanging out all the time, like every weekend, sometimes like Wednesday through Saturday, like we were hanging out hardcore. And I was meeting like more and more kids, or I keep saying kids, but young adults, um, that were either going to NYU and doing art, or SVA, of course, and I met a couple kids that went to Pratt. And so it was just sort of like, oh my gosh, you know, I could do art. I could make art because I was still drawing all the time. And, you know, I was very much interested in that. And also growing up, I always went to museums with my parents, and, you know, it was just kind of like a natural thing, but I didn't think of it in terms of that would be something that I would do. It was just a part of my life in general. Um, so it was really at that moment. So I was probably about uh, 20. I was probably like 20 years old. And I thought to myself, I'm going to go to SVA. But it didn't happen. It didn't happen then. It didn't happen for like another like year and a half, 2 years. Like I lived in LA for a while, and then I came back to New York, and then I went to SVA. So there was like a few years in between that. But you know, I had to build a portfolio, you know, because all I had up to that point was just drawings of fashion. So I had to really do things like do still lifes and do figurative works and charcoal and do a painting. And, you know, so I had to really buckle down and think about, you know, all of the different techniques that the jury would be looking for, and to just show them a range of my work. And so within that period of time, I was able to do that. And while I was living in Los Angeles, I applied to SVA and I got in. And I moved back to New York and I went to SVA.
well, it's
Long story short.
so cool you mentioned that because I recently was to your exhibition, and your pieces have an elegance that, now that you say that you studied for fashion, I understand. They have the aesthetic of the fashion.
Sure,
Um, what
sure.
do you consider, Vickie, if you would not be an artist, what would you be? if you would not be an artist?
Now when I think about that, it's almost scary.
Difficult
I'm
to say, no?
afraid to even touch it. Um, I don't know what I would be doing now because, like I said, I thought, I used to be a little kid and say, I'm going to be a teacher. And then it was like, I'm going to do fashion. And, now that I've been doing art now, God, I guess it's, a little over 30 years, I guess. Um, I just can't imagine doing anything else.
Exactly, yeah. The
And
artist, same.
I'm compelled to do it. There's no, whether it's a piece of paper, a piece of paper that I have next to me, I could be in the middle of watching a movie
Mm-hmm.
and I'll see something in the movie that'll kind of turn my head around and I have to draw something that is referencing it or it's kind of like mimicking it or, it's something that's, visceral. I can't get rid of it. I can't shake it off. And so I just have to do it.
Vickie, I know you're not in your studio because of the weather, but
Yeah.
I have some images of your work.
Okay.
That is going to be something we create because of this storm. But I'm going to show the people some of your images. These are the pieces that are hanging at the show at Westminster Gallery. And
Sure.
I'm going to ask you questions about that, and then people can know your work. And let me see. Yes, this is one of the pieces. Do you see it well?
Yes, that's
Okay.
Electra.
This is Electra. Okay, tell me something about who is Electra, but first, if you have to define the most important element in your work, which element would be?
Huh. Well, that's a little tricky. I mean, do I get abstract with the answer or do I get really specific? I think it's the most important thing is, well, for me, the most important thing that's always existed in my work, and I mean, like my studio work, not like commissions that I've done like way back in like the early 2000s, but the most important thing is to convey femininity.
Yes.
And
Your pieces
so
are very
that's what
feminine.
I've always done with my work.
Well, I can see that your pieces are very feminine, definitely.
Yeah.
That's why it's I don't know, it was the fashion thing, or there is a lot of things that convey to that. And tell me about Electra. Why she's Electra? And
Well,
tell
the
me about it.
series that this piece comes from is called My Seven Sisters. And so they're loosely based on the Pleiades star cluster. But before that, I've been working on a series of these forms that are called pupes in the bush. And so originally these forms were supposed to represent kind of a subverted visual of like bush women or, Black and brown women in National Geographic, but then I kind of distort it or re-distort it really, and kind of make it into my own. And in doing so, I kind of like super feminize it and in my own way. So when I did this grouping, which is like a subset of the series, of the Pupe series, I was thinking about, these figures or these forms being, goddesses, and just real like celestial entities and out of this world. And so the Pleiades series, each piece is named after one of the stars in Greek mythology. And so they each have a name, and Electra is this one. And
There is
so
a
there's
lot of
no,
symbolism in the piece.
well, maybe, I don't know.
Like for example,
I don't know, Pablo.
these things you have in the side,
Yeah.
they they uh they symbolize something, or maybe
Yeah, I
just
use that a lot.
yes.
I'm sorry, dear.
No, tell me.
I use it a lot in my work, in the Pupe series, and in this. I used to do in my paintings, I used to do a lot of drip marks. And then they started getting painted. So they were painted drip marks. And usually they would kind of come after a long thread, a long vertical line, and then there would be a drip at the end of this long vertical line to, mimic like, moisture, like a wet drop, And
Why do you like to use those?
because it's really just, it just has a great feeling, I don't know how to say it. It just, you know, being moist and wet, and there's a sensuality to it, but it's also, natural. It's just, it's a part of Mother Earth, and that there's life in that.
Yes.
And so there are all these connotations associated with it, and some of them I'll remember later. But at the moment, for the moment, let's just say that it just, has that feeling, very surreal, a lot of oozing, a lot of dripping. And there's also like an audio element to it. When you think about the sound that a drip makes, it's just all kind of a part of it
This is what
in
I
in my
was
in
I
my
was
mental process.
that is what I was thinking. I was thinking that she was talking, like there is a strong sensual strong sensual presence in your work, not only
Sure.
in the image, how the work was made, and that what you mentioned about the drips is
Yeah.
very remarkable. And for example, all these decorative things in her dress
Yes.
or body, um, is just, what is that? You choose it to make her dress, or
Ah. No,
no?
well, it represents a lot of different things, but on
Mm-hmm.
the base level, it is, um, they're like chords,
Mm.
they're bindings. And so the forms are squeezed together, bound together by
Mm-hmm.
these colorful strips. And and then the drip marks that you see up at the top,
Mm-hmm.
um, they're kind of like
This part,
like no, the drip shapes on the
other
left
three
and the
shapes,
right.
yes.
Yeah, those kind of represent like a burst, or like a bang, like an explosion.
Okay.
You see what I mean? So the mark making, it's like mark making, right? It's kind of a flash, a blast, and it's an exclamation point. And but then the body is very confined and tied up and bound together. And that's something that I've been doing in all of my work really for a while. Even like these old paintings that I used to do. And it's about being tied up, essentially. And it's not a malevolent thing. It's not a really bad thing necessarily. Um, but that's what came out of me.
I'm gonna pass to other image. You know, this is other of the images that are in the show. Where
Uh,
when I was there, I was thinking in that they are entities or people related to you, but at the same time, I thought
yeah.
more than thinking, I have the feeling that they are all kind of self-portrait.
Wow, Pablo. Um, they are not self-portraits. Not consciously anyway. But talk to me again in 6 months. We'll see what
But
I
you
work
say
out.
they are your seven sisters.
Yes, but there's a romantic bent to it. It's like a narrative, a storytelling. It's not truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's really about weaving the fantasy, weaving the story. And so whenever I'm making work, there's always this kind of fantastical storyline that is occurring behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're not necessarily going anywhere or saying specific things to one another. It's more of a intuitive feeling
Mm-hmm.
that exists, and they're rooted in the earth. They're rooted in iconic characters that can at one end be recognizable, and at the other end, they're just super abstract and you don't know what they are or who they are. And this new series that I did for this exhibition, they feel more like figures to me than the poupées that I've done in the past. The ones that I've done the last few years,
Mm-hmm.
they're more bulbous, they're more globular, and there's no real up and down. It's kind of more like this, what you're showing now.
Mm-hmm.
So the Seven Sisters take on more of a figurative, recognizably figurative form. But again, they're not meant to really represent anything other than what they represent. And that
Okay.
is this magical or mystical kind of story that exists, but it's not meant for real, like,
Okay. Let's talk about your process of work. How, for example, this piece. How do you make this piece? How did you start?
well, usually I start from a sketch. I have a lot of sketches because I'm
Mm-hmm.
always doodling and I'm always looking at shapes, and the shapes can come from any object, whether it's from a tree trunk to a shape of a car. Um, I'm most uh, I'm mostly drawn to organic bulbous shapes, not really hard-edged shapes. Um, so they're always going to have this kind of anthropomorphic, organic quality to them. And I like that because it feels very languid and very sensual. And again, it's kind of like they're draped and dripping, and that really comes from my love of surrealism and so I like to have or magical realism. I like to have these sort of just fantastical shapes. And so I start with the form first, and then from there, I start preparing the collage portions, and that is very labor intensive. Um, so there's a lot of cutting, there's a lot of discarding, because sometimes the cut of the paper, it's not the right width, or yeah, it's not the right width.
Mm-hmm.
So I might have to cut it down, and if I cut it down too much, then it's too thin, so I have to cut a new piece, and I get very anal about it. And then, of course, you have to think about how the patterns of the different collage pieces are placed against each other also. So that takes a lot of time. I'm trying to find a remedy for that because it's killing me. But
For,
yeah, so
for example,
I enjoy doing it though. I mean, at some
yeah.
point it becomes sometimes I have to kind of pull myself out of the mire, because I could get really stuck in it. Then I have to say, okay, enough, gone. And I'm trying to do that more and more with these works, is not, not just pour over them hour after hour after hour. And then I'll add the paint, additional paint, sometimes like glitter, or sometimes I'll add some gold leaf, and then that's the piece.
What inspired you to start a new series?
These questions are killing me. What inspires me?
Something that you read, something that you, a situation in your life, something that happened in the social context we live, everything?
Yeah, everything is inspiring to a certain degree. I want to represent my life. But, in terms of definitive references, I'm really inspired by decorative art. So I love gold gilt. I love wallpaper design and textiles, and like patterns, flower patterns. A lot of that has memory for me. It reminds me of my childhood. It reminds me of my family. And so that also is my culture, right? So all of these things are kind of mixed in together. And then, of course, there's all the study from art school, right? So you're studying you're studying European-based artists, from, Michelangelo, even the surrealists, they're all like European artists. So it's interesting. It's an interesting mix, but I love all of it. And then living in Miami, living in Florida, that has brought a whole other level to my work that I didn't really feel connected to or see early on when I moved here. And I kind of stayed away from it, and I think that happens a lot with, artists that are from the Caribbean or Latin America sometimes, especially if you're, in art school. Well, yeah. I mean, when I was in art school, I many times had instructors telling me to paint myself in the work. Do a portrait, and I didn't want to do that.
Okay.
I'm not really a figurative artist. I'm not a portrait artist. I don't do landscape art. I don't do, architectural or super photorealistic figurative stuff. That stuff never really interested me. I love to see the work of other artists that have really tight hands, and they can kill it. I love it. But it's never been something that I've been interested in doing. It doesn't, get me in the tummy. And so that was very challenging. And then maybe in my senior year, I had an instructor, Marilyn Minter.
Oh,
Shout out
Marilyn
to Marilyn
Minter,
Minter.
yes. Great artist.
Fabulous. She was
Hyper
my teacher
realistic.
for 2 years. And she came to me one day and looked through my journal. We had to keep like these kind of drawing journals. And she looked at it, and she looked through all of these pages, and she said, "This is what you should be doing. Why are you doing that? You should be doing this." And I couldn't mentally make the leap, before that. I just thought, this is what you do in your doodle book. And then this is what you do when you're in art school, and ultimately when you become an artist. The ones that break away and do abstract stuff, they were mostly like men. And so I was like, oh, those guys, those rebels, they're doing it. I didn't see myself doing that until she really pointed that out to me. And from that moment, everything just shifted, and I started painting that way. I started making, and I didn't care if it looked like a Dali painting. I didn't care if it looked like, an Yves Tanguy or whatever, but that felt natural, like, this kind of languid, again, very drippy, very sensual, very organic and of the earth kind of. And and so it just kind of made sense for me to keep doing that. But then I was still working in the confines of being in New York. And back in the 90s, I just didn't think about doing work that was really more based on being from the Caribbean. I was still thinking about European-based art, So when I came to Miami, that really was an eye-opener, right? Because, even though I knew about artists from Latin America, of course, and artists from the Caribbean, even Haitian artists, of course. But it wasn't something that I thought was for me. And it was only until I came here to Miami and started showing and meeting other artists and, just really learning. And another artist who was like a big influence on me was Edouard Duval-Carrier. And I've spoken to him about my work at length. And, I just thought how fantastic that he's doing this and this work that's really like edgy, but it's also speaking about Haiti and the history. And, that's amazing. And I do
And
think
also
it's
very
amazing.
magic, a lot of symbolism, a lot of magic.
Yeah, And the funny thing is, we did this show where he put my work in one of I think it was the first one or the second iteration of the Global Caribbean exhibition, and it was held at the Little Haiti Cultural Center. I think that was 2009, maybe. And, it had all my paintings, a lot of pink paintings, pink and pale blue. And then all of these other artists, and I was looking at my work in the context of all of these artists. I mean, even Hugh Locke is in that show. I mean, he's like amazing, right? Amazing artist. And it was like somebody threw a pot of cold water on me. And I was like, oh my God, my work is my work. I'm a Haitian American artist, and my work is Haitian American, and it fits here. And all of a sudden, I was seeing things in my work that I had never seen before, that like shapes and, even the dripping, like I couldn't even believe it. It was like magic. I gotta talk to Edouard. I think he's a warlock. But it was just amazing. And all of a sudden I could see the possibility of being a part of that community, because I still kind of thought of myself as a New Yorker, but I wasn't like from the New York school, right? So it's a weird thing to think about placement and where you belong, but being a creative person within that. So that's still something that I'm working through. I'll probably always be working through that. For me, it's kind of been a big deal. An ongoing big deal. But yeah, I think living here in Miami has really helped my work to evolve. And, I've started thinking more about my history and my culture. And, I feel very American, but at the same time, I feel like my culture is accessible to me. It's more accessible to me here than it was when I was living in New York. So I'm grateful for that.
You mentioned this a little before, but if you can define, what's your message in
What's
your
my
art?
message?
Yes.
Do drugs. Every day. No, I'm kidding. What's my message? I don't know. I don't have a message. I think perseverance is very important. Even with whatever.
In your art.
Oh, in my art.
No, as you as an artist in your art, the message of your artwork.
Okay.
For the viewer. You want to have a
I don't know
message?
if there's a message. I am the message, that there is diversity in all cultures and in all individuals and all beings. And so I'm representing Planet Vickie. You know, and there are, many people that may be inspired by my work, and I hope so. But my work is about being an individual and following whatever course that takes you on.
Is there a story behind the pieces? For example, each piece
Sure.
has a
Yes,
story.
there is a story,
Yes.
but it's not something that is really
Yes.
something that I can articulate.
Yeah.
It is a hidden narrative. It is
Yeah.
there are references, like with the Seven Sisters, I'm referencing Greek mythology, in the naming of these characters, but there's no woven story for the viewer to grasp other than you're looking at a picture that I painted of what I think they look like in this moment. But again, it's like I said before, they're not necessarily going somewhere or going to have a conversation about something. They're really just, I mean, it's static, right? They're just in space, and it's like a fantastical, magical space. But there's no distinct storyline behind it. And I've never had that for my work. It's always just kind of been, it's like humming along, it's very intuitive. So I'm humming along and I'm painting, and this is what I made. And there are references to a lot of different things, and there's problem solving occurring within the work. And I may be thinking about things that will find its way into the work. Sometimes it's historic, references to slavery and colonialism and women and popular culture, Walt Disney characters. I'm mesmerized by these
Yes.
princesses and all the negative connotations that come with that kind of stick with you throughout your life. I mean, it's really kind of interesting, but I'm not much of a philosophical person, so well, we're all kind of like barroom philosophers. So sometimes I can talk about it, but other times it's just really just abstract, and it's just I'm just touching on it, here, here, here. And the viewer can decide what they're getting out of it that maybe brings them to want to learn more about a particular subject, whether it's Greek mythology or whether it is about Haiti or whether it's about, surrealism. It could be any of these things.
Why did you choose for your show the title "In My Mind, in My Head"? I wanted it to happen. Why you choose that name for the show?
Because that's kind of where I was at this moment.
Okay.
I had some other titles. Usually my titles, also for the titles of my artwork, are very, they're often derived from music lyrics, and sometimes they're kind of dreamy, kind of, machinations about being in love or, lost love or, whatever. But in this moment, this time that we're in, I was just thinking about, I'm always in my head, I'm always kind of lost and off somewhere. And in those moments, the place where I am, I want that so much to be the reality.
Okay.
Emotional. Like I just don't want to be here. That's really the bottom line. If I could go, like, just leave the planet, that would be so great. just leave the planet, take a break. And I spoke to someone about this the other day, and and so that's what the title of the show became. It was just sort of, I just want to go into space.
Definitely,
And
you're an artist.
I know, I know, I know.
Let's talk about beauty. What is
Yeah.
beauty? There is something present in your work. Beauty is something that you pursue.
Yes, very much so. And it's something that I've always just been interested in terms of how my work is presented and how my process works.
Yes.
Um, for me, I used to say that, growing up, I was a tomboy. And so in the series of works that I was making in 2000 through 2015, or just before I started doing the poupées, these works were the outlet for me to be hyper feminine. That this was a space where I could use a lot of pink, I could use a lot of frilly elements, decorative elements, just, put it over the top as much as I did. I think now what's interesting is the work is much more over the top than it was back then. Back then it was much more minimal. I was using like these base
Yes.
colors, and then the forms themselves were just lines, curved lines, and there was no mass, there was no fill-in. And so that kind of evolved right into what I'm doing now. And
And you started to get out from the frame of the canvas. Your work
oh, sure.
became
Yeah, I started doing the
installations, and
assemblages
there is a
and
big installation in the show, very interesting too.
yeah,
It's in one room. Uh,
yeah. But that's kind of different.
mhm.
But it's still part of the same, series or process where it just has to, for me, aesthetically, to my eye, it just has to be beautiful. It has to just, I mean, I don't know why that is. Again, let's talk in 6 months after I see my therapist. But, I don't know. I mean, I have an inkling, but I'm not going to touch it. It's like right there, but I'm not going to touch it. But, you know, I think it's about being pretty, right? It's about being a woman, and before that, being a girl, and the acceptance that comes with being pretty and being beautiful. And so there's some of that in there, and then there are other things too, but we'll start with that. I think I did really good. We'll start with that.
Mhm.
But the piece that I did at the gallery, at Snitzer Gallery, is a beautiful piece, but it's really meant to be like a memorial. For me,
Exactly.
it's my version of, you know, just expressing how sad and how sorry I am about what's been happening with gun violence and police brutality and murder and social injustice, and it's just a lot. And even though I was doing all of these pieces that, for me are very otherworldly and off this plane, off this planet, um, I just wanted to do something that felt tethered to the earth and to where I am now and where, we all are. And again, that goes back to the title of the show. It's just, I
Yeah.
wanted it to just not exist. I wanted it all to stop.
You had the need to do this piece, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was going to do something else completely.
Mm.
And I made the decision to do this within, maybe a month before the show opened, maybe 2 months.
I'm thinking
And
about the artist activity, and it's something between a pleasure to do it and a need to do it. Sometimes the
sure.
pleasure and a need is like opposite things, but combined for the
Oh,
artist
yeah.
activity.
I mean, sometimes it's slow and meandering, and you maybe lost your way and you're kind of thinking it through and solving problems, in the work. And then other times it's like you are clear about what it
Exactly.
looks like, how it's gonna, how tall is it gonna be, just everything, like as if I was a conduit, and something or someone was working through me. But there was no hesitation really. It was just, okay, that doesn't work, I'm gonna do this. That doesn't work, I'm gonna do this. And it was exhilarating, but it was also really exhausting, like
Yes,
mentally,
yes,
emotionally,
really, exactly,
because I
yes.
was thinking about it
Uh,
constantly. You
yes,
know,
that's
but
the
that's
point.
being an artist, right? Like you say,
Exactly,
I
exactly.
mean, it's true.
Vicky, do you have a goal as an artist?
You know what I'm gonna say? Money, honey. What's my goal? Oh my God, that is so funny. What's my goal? Well, my goal is to, obviously to be a voice in the world and to have a legacy and, to share what I have to share.
Mhm.
But my goal is also to, you know, to 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 get to the point where I can really just make art, all the time.
Mhm.
So, the goal is not to make money. The goal is to make incredible work and to share that.
Without thinking about
Um,
the commercial
yeah,
aspect. Exactly.
and then what comes thereafter comes thereafter. I feel like I'm very lucky in that I had the benefit, or maybe not. I was going to say the benefit of working for as many years as I did in museums. So I feel like to some degree I have a lot of understanding of what happens behind the scenes. The other side of that is I feel like I lost a lot of time because I was working full time and I was often not in the mood to make work because I was, you know,
Daniel. Yeah.
decompressing from whatever
Yes.
came eight
Exactly.
hours earlier. So, and also things are moving so much faster now than they were in the 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, even the 2000s, right? Like early 2000s, it was like a dream. It was like we were living the life in Miami. It was fabulous. And now it's like, it's impossible. Any day now, someone's going to come and take your head off. So I feel like I'm getting older and I don't have a lot of time. And there's so many things I want to do. So that's a
And
little
you
tough
choose.
to think about,
Yeah.
you know.
Um, I remember when I met you in the 90s, at the end of the 90s or beginnings of the 2000s. You were
The
at
end,
MoCA.
yeah.
You were working at MoCA, a Museum of Contemporary
Yeah.
Art.
Oh my
Yes,
God.
that was when I met you.
Yeah. I mean,
Not
how
long ago,
interesting is
yes.
that, right? I think it's so funny how that happens, but you know, oh gosh. I mean, that was like a lifetime ago, right?
Yes, yeah, it was long ago. But I remember you. I'm going to ask you a last question, and after, if you want to say something else, we have time too, because we have to do it in less than 1 hour. Um,
Yeah.
I am an art instructor too, and this is a question that my students would ask you. Um, what would you advise to somebody that wants to start an art career, to be an established artist like you are?
There are too many. Do something else.
Sound like a gallery.
Get out of here. Oh my gosh. Um, oh my gosh. Well, first of all, you just have to decide you're going to do it no matter what, right?
Exactly. Very
You know,
good.
the other part of my history is that I came across a lot of people who pretended that they had good intentions, but really what they were doing were trying to discourage me from this path, you know? And I think the most important thing that one can decide for themselves as an artist is that you are going to be an artist. And so that means you're always an artist. So that means every morning you wake up, every night you go to bed, you're an artist. And so perseverance, I was saying this earlier, is extremely important. Commitment, and you have to do the work. So even when you don't want to do the work, you have to do the work. And I almost gave up. I really did. I almost gave up. I was like, well, I guess I'm going to be a registrar. Oh, well. Oh, look who has a show. It was killing me, you know? And I was like, I'm not going to do this. I have to be who I'm meant to be, you know? And so you have to decide that for yourself. And so there may be, you know, downsides because you make that decision on one hand, but on the other hand, what you gain is your soul. You gain yourself. And that's the most important thing. So one has to persevere, commit, do the work, and do the work. You know, work comes from work. That's something else Marilyn Minter would always say to me, or say to the class, is work comes from work.
Well, Picasso say inspiration comes only when you're working. When the people ask him, Master, what inspired you? To be inspired, you have to be working.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
And sometimes you just have to inspire yourself. You have to be your own best friend. So that means you have to, you know, stay on the hustle, right? So you're always reading, you're always interacting with other artists, you're always, you know, just putting yourself out there and making yourself available for yourself, you know, and for others.
Vickie, we are gonna close. I wanna see if there is somebody have a question, but there is
Oh,
something that
wow.
you would like to say before we close, something that maybe I didn't ask you or you wanted to add?
No.
No. Okay. Let me see if there is questions. Let me tell everybody that we have to do this conversation less than 1 hour because in 1 hour Instagram usually cut. And then
Sure. Well, this was my first one.
you made it very well. Don't quit.
Nerve-wracking. Hey, listen, I didn't cry. I'm also like an instant crier. I could cry at the drop of a hat.
Okay,
Thank
everybody, we're gonna close here. I wanna post it in my page, and then I'm gonna send it to you, and you can send it to the people, and you can post it too. Thank you so much, Vickie, for tonight. Thank you so much, everybody, to join us.
Thank you, Pablo.
And I see you maybe soon.
Wait, where's my mask? I don't have my mask.
Let me one more thing before we close is two things actually. First, when the exhibition, when people can see your show, until when?
The show closes November 21st.
November 21st, okay. And they
Yes.
have to do an appointment or they can go spontaneously to the gallery?
I think it's a good idea to just call and make sure they're open.
Okay.
I'm not aware that they're doing specifically appointments. I don't believe so, but you
Yeah, but
just
it's better
never
to
know.
call the gallery. Yeah, I call.
Sure.
Yeah, it's
Sure.
better. And one more thing is you're gonna have a solo show in a museum next year, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's so exciting. At the Boca Raton Museum of Art, I'm going to have a solo exhibition in June.
June 2021.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah. So there'll be more of that to come.
Okay, Vickie, thank you so much. Have a great
Thank you,
night.
Pablo. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye. Bye.